Hey, book crows, I'm Beryl. I'll be your host today, and I'm joined by my co-host, Thyme. I don't know why I said it that
Hello.
way.
Hello.
Hello. Today, we will be discussing The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. Maclean. But before we get into it, Thyme, what books are you currently reading? And maybe possibly have picked up recently?
I did. So I'm reading Raising the Horseman by Serena Valentino. She's also the author of the Villains series. I have not read those, but I see them. They're the covers with the faces.
Mm-hmm.
And because I went to Pagan Fest, they have local authors there, so I picked up Demons and Tea Leaves by Courtney Davis. I have no idea if it's good, but it sounds interesting. She also had some books where they're like the MFM books. Not my thing, but if you like those. And then I picked up book 3 of Wizards of the Apocalypse by X Zombie, which is fun. It's like a D&D adventure style, and there's occasionally cool art pictures in it. And because I bought them at them, they're signed. And then I got 2 books for you for Yule. I can't get book 3 yet because it hasn't been released.
What?
Yes. When I told the author your name, they were like, Beryl. Like Queen Beryl from Sailor Moon?
It's such a, 20% of the time that's what people say. Oh my god.
Are they correct, though?
You bought me books?
Yes, I bought you books.
So in terms of my name, I spent 3 months researching gender-neutral names, and Beryl was the one that stuck, and then I immediately told my sister, hey, I finally found a name that sticks with me that's, gender-neutral, and I told her, and she's like, you've seen Sailor Moon. How do you... Beryl, from Queen Beryl, right? Like, fuck. The most forgettable Sailor Moon villain because she's the first one, but she's the one that everybody knows because people don't look past the first one. Why am I going to pay attention to Queen Beryl?
Or they just haven't finished the series.
Yeah, or they okay, but Queen Beryl is a really good villain, especially with Crystal. Crystal really fixed her character. But when Sailor Galaxia is right there, my little gay heart is, all over that.
I need to rewatch Sailor Moon. I haven't seen it in so long. I just remember Tuxedo Mask.
My job here is done, but you didn't do anything.
Exactly. The entire show is just Sailor Moon being like, ah! And then Tuxedo Mask being like, bitch, you're useless. Bye. And then
she gets better as time goes on.
And then the not in their costumes like, I'm going to annoy the shit out of you.
That's season 1. You got season 1 pretty on point there. I've seen the entirety of the original 90s Sailor Moon 3 times, twice in English, not the Viz dub. I haven't watched the Viz dub actually. And once in Japanese, all before the Viz dub came out.
Don't watch the Americanized version.
And don't watch it's pronounced Dick, but DIC version from Canada, actually.
Can I be frank with you, Mr. Wayne? Sure, if you prefer to Dick.
So, 4 Kids is based out of America, but all of the translations that are, famously bad for 4 Kids actually were translated in Canada, and it had to meet both Canadian and American censorship standards, which is why we get so much weirdness from them. Genuinely, if you combine both censorship standards from back in the day, it's really weird. But the Viz dub, you can watch the Viz dub. I haven't watched the Viz dub. I hear it's good. Go watch the Viz dub, and I need to finish Crystal still. But I've read the entire manga.
And then you get to the actual love part. And then you get to the lesbian couple that are just cousins.
So, see, the problem is that Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask isn't actually an interesting couple to pair together, especially considering the fact that the entire reason they love each other is that their love was written in the stars through reincarnation, because they're reincarnated beings who loved each other, and it really makes you second guess their love.
I've actually read I don't remember the name of the book, sadly. I've read it in middle school? High school? I don't know. I read it at some point. I read a really good version of reincarnated love soul things. It's the only version I've seen that is actually done well. It's hard to do it was written in the stars, reincarnated in a way that is actually enjoyable.
I just hate soulmates.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I give a shit about soulmates is when it's fucking Star Trek, because Kirk and Spock, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's called that for a reason.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can respect that. Star Trek is the one exception.
There is the Vulcan word, it's like Tathalia or something like that.
Yeah. Sailor Moon only gets a pass for me because they spend so much time in the 90s anime with them just dating, and it's like, whatever. Also, the fact that in the American version of the 90s anime, they age Tuxedo Mask up to make him an 18-year-old when he is not 18 in
She's like 14, why'd they age him up?
They aged him.
That's weird.
So the reason they aged him up is because in canon, Tuxedo Mask's parents are dead and died when he was a kid. So he's an orphan. And he emancipated himself in Japan at a very young age and started living on his own. But the emancipation process in Japan for people who are younger is easier to obtain than the emancipation process for people in Canada and America. And their theory on how to fix this whole thing of a man who works a job, goes to school, and lives on his own clearly isn't to talk about emancipation. That's going to give kids ideas. It's going to be age him to 18 and make him a college kid. That's so much better.
I mean, I know the age of consent is different in Japan with parental permission and stuff, but she's still like 14.
Now, in the actual original, he's 16, if I remember this right. Might be 17, but a much better age gap. Because in the manga and in the anime, of course, essentially the last arc of Sailor Moon is when Usagi finally ends up in high school, which high school in Japan starts at 15, not 14. And then Tuxedo Mask gets some kind of scholarship to go study in America. So he might be an adult by the time that she's a 15.
Also, isn't high school in Japan? No, I think it's college in Japan or something like that. There's some sort of schooling that's optional.
There's more optional education requirements in Japan as a whole. There are people who just drop out in middle school.
Yeah.
But my manga is not with me right now. Can't remember exactly what it was that got Tuxedo Mask's Mamoru character to America, but he was going to America for some form of schooling. Let's get the show on the road. Phoenix Keepers by S.A. Maclean.
The Phoenix Keepers, everybody!
So, I'd like to start this out. Instead of doing the summary, I want to start out with a little thing where my primary issue with this book, it is advertised as a sapphic, cozy mystery, when it is really a bisexual, cozy, atmospheric workplace drama with a hint of mystery. You're thinking.
Yeah.
This book is like 25% atmospheric animal descriptions, and 25% inner anxiety thoughts, and 50% actual plot, which is fine for a cozy book, but it is a hint of mystery, very bisexual, very LGBT friendly. This book as a whole had a lot of LGBT rep that I am 100% fine and happy with. Like, this is fine. But let's get into the summary.
Yes. First, I guess you should explain, in case people don't know, how this book was advertised.
With sapphic cozy mystery, or the bisexual atmospheric workplace drama with a hint of mystery. So anything that's labeled sapphic is that it is being labeled as a story in which two women are getting together by the end, which is what happens. But I have a problem with stories that are described as sapphic when the main character is very clearly bisexual. Like, this main character is bi. And then on the other end, the fact that it was labeled as a sapphic cozy mystery also ruined the whole appeal of her being bi, because when she starts flirting with a guy who is not mentioned on the back blurb, like, the story starts with her saying that she really likes this guy that also works for the same zoo as her. I'll talk about that in the summary. It starts with her liking a guy. And obviously, if she likes a guy, maybe it will work out, maybe it won't, because it's so early on in the story. But the blurb doesn't mention him at all. Does mention her workplace rival, though. And when it is labeled and advertised to me as a sapphic story, with the immediate first love interest not being mentioned at all in the blurb, I know that he's not going to be the end game, which might be why it's advertised as a sapphic cozy mystery, but just advertise that the main character is bisexual. Call it a bisexual cozy mystery.
Yeah. Well, and there's a really big problem of bisexual erasure Like, the second someone that's bisexual picks a gender, or a non-binary person, that is also a possibility, but because there's the pansexual, who is everyone, and then the bisexual, just usually designate male or female. But once they pick one, people tend to assume, oh, you're just this. So, like, with me, being someone who is pan-romantic, people probably look at me and my husband and just think I'm a straight person.
Which is the
So
frustrating
having a
part.
book that has a bisexual character and doesn't actually advertise them as being bisexual is disheartening and just continues the problem.
To add to that, there is also an issue in which it is believed that bisexual people are more likely to cheat. They are not. That's also biphobia. Let's not think that. But that doesn't happen in this book either. In fact, our wonderful romantic interest goes out of her way to ask our main character, hey, have you broken it off with so-and-so guy yet? Before she kisses. And I think that's important. But past that, there are openly trans characters, openly gay characters, openly non-binary characters. None of it's ever questioned. Overall, just generally good LGBT rep. It's just sad that this was advertised as sapphic instead of bisexual, though I understand why. It's easier to say it's a sapphic romance over a bisexual romance because people who are looking for sapphic romances know what the word sapphic means. People who are looking at books and looking at romances who see the word bisexual are immediately going to have different thoughts than people think that they will have. I understand it's a marketing ploy. I do not blame the author whatsoever. My personal opinion is this is probably a case of the publisher. So no hate to S.A. Maclean, hate to her publisher most likely.
Advertising is a big thing.
They were probably looking for a specific demographic. And to be fair, I picked up the book because I heard sapphic cozy mystery and that it was going to have magical creatures in a modern setting and went, hell yeah. That sounds something perfect for me. I almost dropped the book at the quarterway mark, but then decided to keep going. And I'm glad I kept going, but I almost dropped it regardless.
Yeah, eventually I will pick up and reread. But eventually I will do the what's book 1 now? Because I'm staring at book 2 and book 3. And book 4 is coming out. I don't remember no? Yes? Anyway, whenever I think of the title, I'll say it eventually. But it's the book 2 is The Pirate's Life of...
Can't Spell Treason Without T?
Yes, Can't Spell Treason Without T. Eventually, I'll reread that and the rest of it. But that's definitely really good. It's definitely that cozy lesbian romance novel style. And it's advertised for that, but it also doesn't have a bisexual character.
I mean, I have Legends and Latte, which I still need to read, and the second book, which, again, I haven't read either of them, but I have the first and second book because they match.
I have not read book 2, but I've read book 1.
Okay.
Yeah, and book 2 is like a prequel.
Interesting. I'm not upset by that. Yeah. All right, summary time. Ayla is our main character, spelled A-I-L-A. I think I'm pronouncing her name right, Ayla. Her last name is very Scottish, and I definitely can't pronounce it. And I don't even have it spelled out on my notes because I decided to forgo all last names solely because Ayla's last name was the only one that I couldn't pronounce. All the rest of the last names are very Hispanic. Ayla is one of 2 phoenix keepers at the San Tamculo Zoo. This is a capital city in a fictional country in a fictional world. The world is a modern setting with fantasy magical creatures, the most magical ones being endangered due to poaching. She is in charge of half the World of Birds aviary, the Kelpie exhibit, and you gotta bear with me on this, Silly Mallow Phoenix. Silly Mallow being spelled Silimalo. I think it is supposed to be, the word is inspired probably by India, like how things are pronounced in India, maybe. Don't quote me on this. Very notably, our main character is one of 2 white people outside of her parents. We're not counting her parents for this, but like 2 white people in the entire book. She is very Scottish and Irish coded, and the other guy is just American coded. It's kind of referenced that the world that she's living in, this fictional country, is like more tropical and has a very similar climate to the other country where this phoenix is from.
Okay.
And a lot of the names in this world, this country that she lives in, is very Hispanic names. Especially the last names is the most important thing to think of here. We're going off of last names, not first names, to try and figure out what people's...
And I believe Mac is the Scottish one. I believe Irish usually is Mick.
Yeah, the only reason I think she's more Scottish coded than Irish coded, I'm gonna say both on this one because her parents run a restaurant, and their restaurant is combining the food that they live in with their culture from their where they're from, which involves a lot of potatoes. They have specifically potato salsa. So we're going to go with both Irish and Scottish coded on this.
Okay. So, to be fair, I don't know the ethnicity of the author, but if they live in the US, and this is coming from someone who also lives in the US, most people who live outside of the UK region they tend to combine Scotland and Ireland a lot in culture and customs and things like that. And it's fine if you're American. They're cousins. That's as close as you're going to get. Like that. I have a book that also does that. There's very Irish coded characters, but they talk about Scotland. They also use the word Gaelic. Mind you, this book is from the 90s, so I give it some leeway. But the big thing is it's a bit there. As knowing what I know, there are some problematic things in there, and American. That's all I'm gonna say.
So to be fair, definitely the main character is being the only one of two white people in the entire thing, despite the country that they live in being very Latinas oriented. I can't tell you exactly what form of Latinas, but they are described to be in a environment that is equivalent to kind of tropical, very warm. It's like California had a baby with a slightly more tropical climate. That's how it feels.
Kind of like the Caribbean?
Yeah, kind of like the Caribbean, maybe Brazil. I don't know enough about geography. This author, I read her blurb a while back. She got her degree in environmental something.
Environmental science.
Yeah, you can tell this book comes from years of experience of her working with animals. And it says here that she's from California. We can see her last name is Maclean, spelled M-A-C, lean. So you can tell this kind of at times felt like a self-written fan fiction of her own job, and you know what? Good for her. But I digress.
Fair. I mean, as someone who works in accounting, by God, I wish I could just dive into the world that my book is written in, which I on purposely made one character be like the clearly paler skinned person.
Yeah.
They live in a very sunny area. They live on a coastal city. Everyone's tan. I also don't describe a F ton of people's ethnicity just because I like to have people put on their own thing. But it's also a D&D inspired book. So yeah. I do have to be like, oh yeah, this person's a half-orc.
Yeah.
That person over there, yeah, that's an elf. You do have to do some of that. Yeah. So, and having multiple ethnicities also makes it so that your book feels more realistic.
Yeah. Honestly, there should be multiple ethnicities in every single book that we're reading, with maybe some exceptions, and the some exceptions are going to be more leaning towards books that exclude white people altogether, because I do want to read stories that are set in ancient China. I'm sorry.
Hell yeah. Once I get my book back from Celine, I will have one for you.
Ooh. I'm excited. Okay. All right. So she is in charge of half of the World of Birds aviaries, the Kelpie exhibit, and the Silly Mallow Phoenix. Notably, there are 2 phoenixes in this zoo, but she is in charge of the Silly Mallow Phoenix exhibit, of which the last of the Silly Mallow Phoenixes have gone extinct in the wild because their feathers have rumored healing properties. Yeah.
Poachers. Lovely.
Ayla suffers extreme social anxiety her entire life, but has a deep love for phoenixes and magical beasts of all types. It's a bit more so birds than anything else, but she loves all magical creatures. It's very clear through the book. The other World of Birds / Phoenix Keeper is her college roommate turned best friend, Tanya. Ayla has a crush on one of the dragon keepers named Connor, and a nemesis griffin keeper named Luciana. You're laughing.
The fact that his name is just Connor. The most basic white bitch name. I apologize if your name is Connor. Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of Connors. I know a lot of Connors solely from them being people that I know's brothers and cousins.
Yeah, my cousin is married to a Connor.
Yeah.
The fact that his name's Connor. You have like Tanya, Ayla, Connor.
I got to the Connor character and like within his introduction, I was first went, whoa, I thought this was a sapphic romance because his introduction is that she wants to ask him out on a date. And two, with the way he was generally acting with his basic white boy confidence bullshit, I was like, oh, this is the villain. Okay. Like it's so obvious for me, but we'll get to that. Luciana has been her nemesis since college when she laughed at one of Ayla's presentations and the next week requested a group project change.
Is this the love interest?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the real one, not the fake out Connor. Ayla is hoping to bring the once thriving Silly Malo Phoenix breeding program back to the zoo, and as inspiration has another zoo's breeding program's egg box live stream running while she works. Shortly after building all of those moving parts up, so like everything I just mentioned, like there's a bunch more little details that go into there, but we're going to get to the actual meat of the story now. Shortly after building all of that up, the other zoo's eggs hatch, but then are promptly stolen by illegal animal traffickers. Feeling defeated by the situation, as she saw those baby phoenixes as a way to bring a male into her zoo to revitalize the program, Ayla mopes about for a little while. This is until the organization in charge of revitalizing critically endangered species say they want to inspect her exhibit. Turns out the male phoenix from the other zoo was left untouched in the incident, but now he's down a female. Ayla and Tanya start working on updating the facility to be able to run the program. But with only 2 months to do so, they are in a time crunch. Connor openly offers his help, but that's not enough. The director encourages Ayla to reach out to the griffin keepers for help, as griffins are also birds, but the size means that they're kept in 2 different enclosures. So, same ecology, they're right next to each other for a reason, but they can't be housed together. Eventually, after a few run-ins with Luciana, who is the head griffin keeper, of course, Ayla slowly swallows her pride and finally asks for help. Thanks to Luciana organizing all of the griffin keepers, the facilities are brought up to date and code in the nick and time. Their efforts obviously pay off, and they will get the male phoenix. And at the celebration party, Connor kisses Ayla and asks her out on a date. It is also announced that Luciana will be the PR director for the project. Unfortunately, female phoenixes are incredibly territorial, and Ayla is run into the ground with trying to introduce the birds to each other. On top of that, yeah.
Mood.
Honestly, Ayla's struggle with the animals was the most real part, especially since, like, as reading it, I could tell the problem was that she was nervous and it was making the birds nervous. But we worked through that through the story.
Yeah, anyone who has pets and then has to introduce another pet, it's rough.
It is.
Especially if they're already adults. If they're like little babies, it's a little easier. But the second they're adults, and I've never been a breeder, but I'm guessing like if they're also different sexes and you're wanting them to breed, that makes it even worse.
Yeah. On top of all of that with the birds, her date with Connor was a total bust. Turns out he's a stock exchange bro and doesn't particularly care for Ayla's interests.
I mean, we happy, but
it just goes more into him being the obvious villain.
I feel like they could have made it a bit more subtle, you know, like have him be like this charismatic, manipulative dick.
I mean, he's pretty charismatic from the get-go, and he starts getting really manipulative because Ayla, throughout all of her interactions with people, she is very self-conscious about herself. That's part of where her social anxiety comes from, is her own self-consciousness, to the point that she kind of bleeds everybody else out and blames everything on herself. And when that doesn't work, she turns around and blames the other person. Ayla's not a good person. But we'll get to Ayla's character eventually.
It's a easily manipulated, easily gaslit situation.
Yeah, and Connor's gotten into her head because Connor, even after their date's a bust, keeps messaging her. And she's like, well, clearly he's interested in me, so clearly I'm the problem. But no, girl, he did not give a shit about your interests whatsoever. He wants to talk about the stock exchange market the entire date. Like, come on. You can do better. She's trying to avoid him now as she's too anxious to formally break things off. Meanwhile, Luciana is trying to get Ayla on board with PR stuff, such as merch, interviews, and other ways to boost donor and public engagement to the program. But the problem is, Ayla doesn't see the point of doing any of that. She just wants to work with the animals themselves and considers anything else showboating that demeans the animals.
You kind of need the marketing and the PR if you're gonna run this little zoo thingy, because how else are you making money?
She doesn't see it that way.
To take care of the animals. I do have to put this one thing in, okay? I mean, number one, exposure therapy is a really good thing if you have social anxiety, just saying. But number two, all I'm thinking of when you're describing this character, it's gonna sound really... I'm reminded of Newt Scamander. And I hate the comparison because it's J.K. Rowling's Fantastic Beasts. But I'm reminded of Newt Scamander. And I love Eddie Redmayne. I love the character.
Yeah, no, you're on point. If Newt Scamander had extreme social anxiety to the point that he couldn't even say anything in public without having a minor breakdown.
I believe the consensus is boy might have been a little on the spectrum. Is how a lot of people describe him. Yeah, but, without a diagnostic...
Yeah.
I can't say for sure.
Ayla's very obviously on the spectrum.
That's what I'm reminded of. That's what I've been reminded of. I'm just like, is this Newt Scamander?
You're on the right track. So this problem where Ayla doesn't want to get involved with PR relations and doing any of the stuff causes Luciana and Ayla to boil over and have a yelling match, where it's revealed that the reason Luciana requested the group project change when they were in college, which, reminder, they're like our age, they're in their late 20s, so they've been out of college for a few years now, was because her best friend's dad just died, and she wanted to be in the same group as her friend to support her friend.
That's also not something that you're gonna necessarily tell a random person.
Yeah. Luciana storms out from that, but Ayla chases her to apologize, which is the first apology, the first real apology Ayla gives this entire book, which, thank God, this is the turning point when Ayla's character actually started being good, in my opinion, and started improving, because before this, her entire character is making me want to put the book down. No shame to people with social anxiety.
Got it.
But we will get into the problems with Ayla past what's going on soon. During this apology is also when she finds out that she's been so much in her own world that she doesn't even know the zoo's mascot peacock griffin passed away 2 weeks ago.
Holy shit.
That is how much of in her own world. And some of it is just her general selfishness and how she views everything. And some of it's also that she's really busy. But that's beyond the point. Luciana's the person who has been in charge of this peacock griffin and is the person who trained him. And she is devastated by this.
Yeah.
And
so
during this...
And dealing with, someone who's not wanting to do what they're needing to do would be really frustrating on top of that.
Absolutely. Honestly, Luciana's a good character. She's a little bit of a mean girl, but in a good way. It is also revealed during this apology that Luciana just laughs when she's nervous, and that's why she laughed during Ayla's college presentation, is that Ayla was really struggling with it, and it was giving Luciana, like, that nervousness that you feel when you're watching someone fail. So that's why she laughed, and she knew it was a problem, and they both apologize and move on. Luciana and Ayla are growing closer as they work together. Tanya teams up with Luciana to make Ayla presentable for one of the interviews that she can't avoid. Ayla finally breaks it off with Connor, who takes it incredibly well. He went from constantly pestering her about hanging out with her after their date to completely not texting her at all as soon as they were broken off, and he didn't feel bad at all. Wow, I wonder why. He's not a good guy. Ayla realizes that she's been a bad friend to Tanya, who has been trying to get her own volunteer program off the ground. But Ayla overcomes her anxiety, and they work things out. The birds finally get along, and they lay eggs. Luciana and Ayla kiss the same night the eggs are laid, so Ayla is on a high. But then
So, where's the bad part?
then the eggs hatch early. That's the bad part, is that the eggs hatch early, which, thankfully, Ayla was there late at night to catch it. But things start to get suspicious off the bat. The live stream feed is unplugged from the source, just as the other zoo that had their hatchlings stolen experienced. Ayla goes to call the police because that's suspicious as fuck, but Connor is there and locks her up instead. Turns out he's been helping illegal animal traffickers. Tanya is calling Ayla on the phone so much that Connor threatens the lives of the baby birds if she doesn't tell Tanya everything is okay. But she manages to use a secret code phrase that she has with Tanya to alert Tanya that something is wrong without alerting Connor, who then leaves Ayla alone while trying to call his men in early because the illegal animal traffickers were also not ready for the birds to hatch early. Thankfully, Tanya calls Luciana, who is also working late that day. Luciana frees Ayla, and they hide the babies in the other phoenix species at the zoo's little hidden cave thing that it's been digging out that nobody knows exists except for the phoenix keepers. And then we start a high-stakes Scooby-Doo chase with guns through the zoo until the police arrive and save them. Yes, that is what I wrote in my notes. It's like 3-4 chapters of just them trying to avoid these people. They manage to avoid them until the police come, and in the end, Connor is put on trial, and the babies are saved, and everybody lives happily ever after.
So, okay. I will say, I love cozy books. Like, there are 2 books that I want to get that I know will probably be bad because they are essentially Hallmark movie books, but I like the cozy autumn vibe that they advertise having.
Yeah.
I love cozy books because as someone who lives in the world we live in and as someone who has terrible anxiety, like, I can't watch horror movies. That is how bad my anxiety is because I will have nightmares forever.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how I am. That being said, I love cozy books. I love the vibes. I will say a lot of cozy books are slow as hell. So you kind of get bored reading them. And I feel like that's the vibe I'm getting from this book.
Yeah, the first half of the book was so boring and annoying with Ayla's character that... And I feel bad for calling Ayla's character annoying because it's very obviously an author self-insert half the time. But the first half of the book was so slow, Ayla's character was so annoying that I almost dropped it. And I'm glad I didn't. The last few chapters are, like, so fast-paced that it's a little wild and it gives you a little bit of whiplash. But honestly, like... everything coming together felt right. So, like, one of my notes here, because I have notes past my summary, was that the story does an amazing job of setting up elements way in advance. The water sprout code phrase being used was being used throughout the entire story. Luciana learning how to ride griffins is one of the ways they get around and not die during the Scooby-Doo chase. At one point during the Scooby-Doo chase, Ayla runs into the Kelpie tank to just try and avoid being caught by the guy with the gun chasing her. And the Kelpie puts her in a trance and willingly takes her out of the trance. Earlier in the book, while Ayla was thinking about how anxiety-inducing that whole situation is about feeding a man-eating beast throughout the day, there's a comment by Tanya saying, hey, surely the Kelpie knows who feeds it and would care to not eat the person who feeds it. And that comes back around in this moment. And then the long-running gag of Tanya not being able to stop her phoenix from digging a cave to nest in behind his waterfall that nobody knows about, being used as the place to hide the babies during the Scooby-Doo chase was brilliant. Like, all of this stuff was set up in advance. There's like 3 or 4 more things that were set up in advance to make that Scooby-Doo chase actually work out in the long run. But it worked really well. It was so smooth that it made all of the slowness and all the setup actually pay off despite how fast and action-packed those last few chapters were. Which made me go from this book is like a 2.5, maybe a 2.7, to this is almost a 4-star read. I wouldn't say it's a 4-star read. I'm still thinking about it. I did finish this book last night. It is that fresh in my memory.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I can think of is I had that sort of issue with when I read you can't spell treason without T, is there was a lot of slow pacedness to like the first 5, 6, 8 of it. And then the sequel, I haven't finished because I started doing other stuff and I knew I wanted to read all of them to do as an episode. Well, not an episode, but like a couple. But it's a lot more faster paced. There's a lot more going on, but it still has a bit of that cozy atmosphere. Whereas there was another book I read that's advertised as being cozy, where it's the same length, but it doesn't feel like it's slow because there is other stuff going on. This person is anxious that they're going to be found out who they actually are, where they actually came from, things like that. There's this undercurrent of what if someone happens to come and find her. There's incidents that happen because of things like the weather, and there's also her trying to set up to be able to actually survive in this new area she's in. Whereas it sounds like this one is kind of like Hallmark drama movie with a little bit of action adventure at the end.
Yeah, pretty on point. It's not the first time I've read a cozy story that has a sudden bit of action at the end. It's kind of hit or miss when there's a sudden bit of action at the end, because the last time I read a cozy book that was so beautiful and wonderful that all of a sudden there was action at the end, it was like the action at the end took away from the rest of the story for me. But yeah, you're on point. It's cozy Hallmark with a bit of action at the end, which is why I say it is a cozy atmospheric workplace drama with a hint of mystery.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, when they think cozy, and this does really pinpoint the sort of community-esque area I'm in online, like, a lot of people, when they think of cozy, they think of things like the movie Practical Magic, which, while that is, it's a pretty decent movie, I will admit, it is slow as shit. It's not one that you're really watching because you're like, oh yeah, I want to watch a super great movie. It's I want to watch something that's nostalgic, and it's that time of year, and whatever. It's kind of like watching Hocus Pocus. Yeah. It's a movie you watch at that time of year. Like when you're in the mood for something cozy or like a cup of tea or something that is in the form of something else. That's what you're watching.
What time of year would this be?
That's a very good question.
Summer? Because of the phoenix? Hot?
Maybe.
Phoenixes hatch in summer?
I don't know. You could not. They'd probably kill the baby phoenix if you just had it on a fire. It does depend on which phoenix you're talking about, though, because there's multiple types of phoenixes.
That's why this book had multiple types of phoenixes. The silly mallow phoenix has a fire tail, but the other phoenix doesn't have a fire tail. It does say that the other phoenix only is a temperature to lower in body temperature than the silly mallow phoenix, though. But interesting thing about the other phoenix is that it controls water, and the silly mallow ones don't. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know.
That explains the waterfall.
Yeah, that explains the waterfall and how it digs But both of the phoenixes have a very difficult time with water spouts. When I mentioned the water spout code phrase being used, there was this thing about how it's standard that all enclosures legally have to have a working water spout. But in the two phoenix enclosures, the water spouts always burst because of the heat of the phoenixes next to them. So Ayla and Tanya, they know that they're just not going to bother fixing them because that's a waste of time. Even though that's not legally what they're supposed to do, it's one of those cases where legality doesn't always mean the correct thing to do. But it makes a really good code phrase for getting out of a situation. I need out is what the water spout code phrase means. Is I need to go fix that water spout.
I will say, when I see the title, The Phoenix Keepers, I kind of want it to be more about the birds than about workplace drama.
I'm going to tell you right now, the birds were very active in this story. The birds were happening a lot. This woman is obsessed with birds. She like, her entire reasoning for her job was because she went to the exact zoo that she works at when she was a kid, was amazed by the silly mallow phoenix as a kid, absolutely wandered by it. Goes to college specifically because she wants to work at the zoo that she currently works at and breed silly mallows. She's literally living her dream actively. She doesn't stop thinking about them every second. The date that she goes on with Connor, she just wants to talk about silly mallow phoenixes all the time.
When that hyperfixation lasts that long, kudos.
Yeah.
My AU ADHD brain cannot. Like, 1 week, I am all Babylon 5. The next week, hey, it's My Little Pony time, guys.
Same hat.
I will say, as someone who has anxiety I do not have such severe social anxiety that I cannot function, but I also, I had to go to public school, I had to go to college. My degree is in psychology. I have been working since I was 10 years old. I've constantly been in social situations. It does make it easier. That being said, like seeing a character that has such social anxiety that they can't function, I get it in the aspect of anytime I have to do a presentation, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like the time I took the speech class with your grandma, I hated my life. That was the worst quarter of my life.
So sorry.
Never.
Was she a good teacher?
She was.
Okay.
But I hated it. I had to give speeches in front
Yeah.
of human beings, and I hate that. Anytime I have to do a class presentation, I want to die. But I am also the person where I just deal with it,
Yeah.
But I understand there's people where they've dropped classes because they found out they have to do things like that.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky in the aspect of, as someone who did things like dance, you just, you get on stage and you do it. You forget that everything else is there, mostly because the stage lights are blinding your ass.
Yeah.
So for me, it is hard to listen to characters that have such severe social anxiety because I can relate, but I can't.
Yeah.
And also as someone who, has a psych degree and also had people constantly come to me because of that in high school, because that was my interest, I also am that person where I get to the point where I'm just like, go to therapy, please. Like, shut the hell up, stop talking to me, just go to therapy, get the help you need, because if you're so socially anxious, you can't function. I understand it's hard, you have to talk to someone. I just started doing therapy a couple of years ago, and it's hard. It's hard to be open with the person you're supposed to be open with. But it is something where it's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Because you're not just impeding your life, you're impeding other people as well. You just don't notice it. And that is the case. I think a lot of people who are that socially anxious, there is a level of you're so wrapped up in you. And I'm sorry if I offended anyone by saying, eventually you just get tired and you like, shut the hell up, go away. But, because that does sound really, really brash. But there is that level of, sometimes that's what people need to hear.
Yeah, that's actually what happens in this story, too.
Like, sometimes you just need someone to kick you in the face. I mean, there's a reason my ex-boyfriend told me that me breaking up with him was the best thing that happened to him, because it made it so he was aware that he needed to fucking fix himself.
Damn.
Like, he told me that afterwards. I'm like, yeah, I should have done a lot sooner.
Oh, yeah, we love that.
And now he's married, and I really hope he's happy. Like, good on. It just sucks that you were so wrapped up in your shit. You couldn't do it sooner. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, there are people where they have to be hit in the face.
Yeah.
They have to be. But I guess that's a PSA for go to therapy. Yeah. Even if you don't think you have a problem, please go to therapy.
It's interesting.
If you're my
if
you're my parents, go to therapy.
Yes. Parents, go to therapy, please. In terms of Ayla, though, I do think that this is a good example of anxiety, the whole book as a whole. She does go to therapy. She actively does therapy. Yeah. She gets chewed out by her therapist. She gets chewed out by her therapist is like, I told you to stop scheduling our phone meetings while you're at work. You need to be able to separate work and this.
The therapist is a lot meaner than mine. But my therapist does a very different style. They do ACT therapy, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. It's about, you are going to have those types of thoughts. But I'm also not a workaholic. I look forward to 4:30. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you.
Mood.
I feel like a 60-year-old old millennial sometimes when I talk to work.
Fair. I just said mood, but at the same time, if I get really into a project, which is the entire reason I'm going into film, when I get really into a project, I just forget that it's work and I get so into it and then I crash and burn like a month later and it's fine. But I love it. I genuinely do love it. It's just as hard in the moment.
I feel like that's me with writing. I feel like that's every writer, though, because I briefly picked up my book for a bit and I started writing it again and then I put it down. But there was a time where that was all I was doing. That was all I was doing. And it was hard because it coincided along with when we were playing D&D. And my character got to a point where they were done with the arc in D&D. Like, it was very clear they were not continuing with the party. And it was one of those, when you're done with something you've been doing for so long, you go to a certain level of grief. And I think that makes the crash and burn so much harder. And I wonder how many authors have that when they're writing their books that they're publishing. Like, I think, is that the reason why Sarah J. Maas won't stop making books? Is that why? You have like 1,000 books, woman. How?
And they're all thick as fuck. They're so thick too. With like one exception, but like why?
Like, I want to know. Please.
That's how I feel about Terry Pratchett.
I want to know. Same with that one lady who wrote This Is Us. How do you make so many books? Are you even human? Are you a robot? Please tell me now.
A reminder that I had a manic episode where I wrote an entire 50,000 word book in 9 days.
Fair.
I'm just...
I need to look at how many, what is my word count?
My word count has gone up more than 50. It's at 70,000 now. Which, like, a lot of Sarah J. Maas readers are like, oh, you need to get that, like, you need it to be almost 100,000. It needs to be more than 100,000. It's going to be as long as it is.
Yeah, there is no word limit on anything. Like, just saying.
If you want to tell me how to write my book and you have a minimum word limit that isn't 50,000, get out of my face, please. Please stop.
Mind you, this probably includes the title and the author point.
Yeah.
And a couple of whatevers that I have. It is by no means finished. Mine's at like 60, 61.
It's pretty good.
705. Yeah, it's pretty good. It is by no means finished. I'm on chapter like 30 something. It's not anywhere near finished. I'm in Act 2.
Not to talk shit about my friend who offered help with me and is probably going to listen to this podcast, but I have a friend who told me at 60,000 words that my book was a novella, when the actual definition of a novella is between 20,000 and 40,000 words. And I twitched and moved on.
Ma'am, sir, non-binary human, I think this is a novella.
Is it between 20,000 and 40,000 words?
Probably.
Then it's a novella.
It's the turn of the screw. You tell me.
I'm sure we could look it up and find out. But there's, like, I'm more concerned about maximum word counts, especially since a lot of Sarah J. Maas readers, and this is my friend included, a lot of what I'm saying here comes from, like, 3 friends. So it might be all Sarah J. Maas readers, because all the 3 friends who have told me this are, like, the 3 people in my life who actually read Sarah J. Maas. And it could be just these 3 specific Sarah J. Maas readers. I don't know. They keep telling me that it needs to be minimum 100,000 words to be a fantasy novel, a fantasy adult novel, and technically publishers don't want something that's more than 100,000 words for your first book. Like, even Sarah J. Maas's first books were not 100,000 words.
No, the first books are not very thick.
No.
I'm literally staring at 2 of them right now.
Yeah. It's once you have enough renown to know that you can make a book that people want to read, then you're allowed to go over the maximum word count.
Okay. This is The Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. There is some debate over the goodness of the author. Some people say it's similar to other books. I haven't read the other book. I don't know. I really liked this book. It's a really good book. I'm gonna do an episode on it. I got the sequel behind me. This book is almost twice the size of one of Sarah J. Maas's books that I'm staring at across my room.
Decent looking book.
It's a thick book.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, a lot of other books I have are smaller than this. Like half the size of this. They're really good books. The word count does not matter. No. I hate to tell you that. There are fan fictions I have read that are under 2,000 words and they're really damn good. Okay? If you're worried about the word count, get the hell out. Get out. I'm sorry.
If you want to be a non-indie, a traditionally published author, and it's your first book, then the word count matters a little bit. And it's a word maximum, not a word minimum.
But also, why are we basing indie authors off of big publishing authors who, let's be honest, kind of just write trash.
Yeah.
I hate saying that because I understand that there is a fandom for things like Sarah J. Maas.
Mm-hmm.
But here's my other thing. If your book is hinging on smut and smut alone at this point, because his dick is the size of a peanut butter jar, I'm sorry. I don't give a shit. I stopped caring about your book on book 2. I read to book 3, but I was angry. And my husband felt it, and so did my Kindle, okay? I have not raged against a machine more than the printer for a long time, and I was raging against the Kindle, okay?
Fair. This is not a Sarah J. Maas safe zone.
This is not, and I apologize. I love the aesthetic of the people who I've seen online where they go to the fantasy balls, but I'm gonna tell you this now. You can do better, honey. You can do better. I promise.
And I'm sorry to my 3 friends, especially one specific one, for how I am speaking about them in this episode, if you're listening to this. It's not a word minimum of 100,000, my dudes.
Okay, Raising the Horsemen is half the size of A Court of Thorns and Roses.
I mentioned earlier that it was very obvious that Connor is the bad guy from the very get-go, just with how he's introduced and how milquetoast white boy he is from the very get-go.
Milquetoast white boy.
I can make fun of my fellow white people. Anybody can make fun of white people.
True. I honestly, we make it so easy.
We do. Just do it. I just realized I never finished explaining why I think that it's a good example of anxiety, this book.
Oh, sorry, I probably took over that conversation.
Fam, we are both ADHD gremlins. It's just gonna wrap back around right now. So, I think it's a good example of anxiety because 1, Ayla does go to therapy, as we said earlier. 2, it shows that she has no childhood reason to be this way. Her parents are supportive. Her parents are outgoing. Her parents are, like, amazing. She doesn't have any siblings to have made her be bullied growing up by the siblings. Like, she is an only child with doting, extroverted parents, and she just happens to have extreme social anxiety. And at the end of the book, she still has social anxiety, but she's able to live her life now. On top of her figuring out that her social anxiety was putting her in the mindset where she was only thinking about herself, and her realizing that she also needs to think about other people.
Yeah, there are a lot of movies and books and the Wicked movie actually was a really prime example of this, if I remember correctly. I haven't watched the movie, don't quote me. But I've seen stuff about it from different communities talking about how they have a character that's disabled in one way or another, and voila, disability gone. It's fixed. It's no longer a problem anymore. Great. I don't know what great stuff you're smoking. Share it with the class. That's not how it works.
Thing with the Wicked book versus the musical and the movie, which the conversation around the character of going voila, no longer disabled, has a bigger issue with the Wicked book. It makes it very clear that when the character, who is the Wicked Witch of the East, by the way, Elphaba's sister, born unable to use her legs, Elphaba makes her the silver slippers, because I believe it is going along with original Wizard of Oz lore, which they're the silver slippers, not the ruby slippers.
Yeah, there's a fuck ton of books.
It's a lot of books.
There's a fuck ton of those books.
There's
so many.
But they were never they're never the ruby slippers.
I think that was for
color. It was because
the color
technicolor. Yeah. But when she puts on the silver slippers, Elphaba makes her sister slippers, or somebody makes the sister slippers, where she can finally walk as long as she's wearing them. In the book, it makes it very clear that her sister, who by the way is a horrible person, and is treated as though she, like, everybody around her treats her as though she's not horrible because she's disabled, but she is a horrible person, and the book does not hide that. The sister thinks her life is going to be better now that she can walk, but it doesn't get better. She doesn't, like, things don't work out for her, and she goes a little mad. And the idea is that it's showing in the book that a disabled person being able to walk doesn't fix her problems.
Yeah.
But the musical doesn't go into that theme. And from my understanding, because this doesn't happen in the first Wicked movie, because Wicked is split into 2 movies, it's going to happen in the second Wicked movie if it followed through with what the musical was doing. But the director said somewhere that they're planning not to do that they're just skipping the walking thing altogether, because if she can have the slippers and not not walk at the same time. Like, if they're not going to have that part of the story, they might as well not have it.
A lot of things do make it seem as if not having something will just fix your life. And I understand for movies, you know, they want to wrap it up in a nice, neat bow. I mean, let's be honest, Cinderella has PTSD from the shit she went through. Like, 100%. But they're not going to show that, which makes sense. Because it's a fairy tale. That's the thing with fairy tales. You have the suspension of disbelief. But when it is more, you have that real world element, and logic is then brought in, it's also a bit of a slap in the face to people who have disabilities. So having a book that shows, yeah, she still has anxiety afterwards. Like, let's be honest, this is a condition where your brain is wired differently. You're going to have it. Like, congratulations. So, but being able to have coping mechanisms and being able to still function in a society that's not made for you, because let's be honest, there's nothing wrong with people who have anxiety. You live in a society that was not made for you. So function is what we want. Function is the goal in life.
Yep, and that's what Ayla gets by the end of the book. So, again, I think it's a good example of anxiety, especially the extreme anxiety. It also shows that just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you can't be a shit person to people around you. And it shows that you still have to take responsibility for your actions.
Yeah, and that is a thing. People do use mental health things as excuses. We saw that with Muskie Husky.
Who the fuck?
Elon Musk.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I was trying not to say the actual name, but...
Emerald Man.
Yeah, Emerald Man. There we go. We saw it with him. That's not how that works. And I think Neil Gaiman recently tried to use that as an excuse, if I remember correctly. Yep. No. Like, yeah, you can be a shit person and have mental health problems or disabilities of any kind. But you cannot blame your condition on it. Because there are people out there where they're generally decent human beings. Or, you know, whatever they decide to identify as. Because I don't see myself as a human being half the time. I am a fairy in a meat suit. You're leaning toward in between like at a 3.5?
Maybe a little bit above 3.5. I did just finish this last night and wrote all my notes last night. That entire summary I wrote in 20 minutes after finishing it. But like 3.5, maybe a 3.6, 3.65.
Yeah, I feel like if the first half was different, you would be at a solid 4.
Overall, incredibly solid story. Once you get to the second half, it is just the pacing and the character being a piece of shit at the beginning that drove me a little insane. Yeah, and also like a little bit of like. A little too much swearing, a little too much of Luciana calling people losers and dorks. But overall, solid 3.65.
That's pretty good. I mean, based on the other books we've had, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not the highest rating I've given a book yet, but like it's the one where I haven't had like a thing where I said like, oh, I want to talk about this specifically in the book and just talked about the book as a whole, which is a good sign. But it's not something that touched my heart. It's just something that I enjoyed reading. And that's okay. Not everything can touch my heart.
I feel like that's what cozy books also aim for. They don't aim for heart-touching, world-changing. Yeah. They aim for, I enjoyed this. You know, like that was a nice latte.
Yeah, I enjoyed my latte. Now time to get a legend with it. I'm sorry. Okay, let's move forward.
Next episode is me, I believe, right?
Yes.
I need to finish this goddamn book. So join us in the next episode, and thank you for being so lovely about our tangents. The next episode will be about Sword Crossed by Freya Marsk. I hope I pronounced your last name right. I apologize if I did not.
We're trying our best.
We try our best.
Have we had a single author we could pronounce the name of yet?